Your bread is killing you slowly and nobody's telling you why. Not the doctors diagnosing you with gluten sensitivity, not the nutritionists telling you to avoid carbs, and definitely not the food corporations making billions off the chemical experiment sitting in your pantry right now. Here's what they don't want you to know. In 1780, a pioneer family crossing the Appalachian Mountains into the Ohio frontier survived on one primary food: bread. Dense, dark loaves baked over open fires. They ate a pound of it per person, per day, every single day. These weren't soft, comfortable people. They were clearing virgin forests with axes, ploughing fields by hand, building cabins from raw timber, working 14-hour days in conditions that would break most modern humans in a week. And bread was their fuel, not protein bars, not supplements, just bread. They thrived on it. They built a nation on it. Now look at you. You eat 2 slices of sandwich bread, and within an hour, you're exhausted. Your stomach bloats. Your head gets foggy. By mid-afternoon, you're crashing so hard you need coffee just to stay awake. That pioneer family ate 10 times more bread than you and had the energy to conquer a wilderness. You eat a sandwich and need a nap. So what the hell happened between their bread and yours? The answer isn't that you're weak or that pioneers were superhuman. The answer is that what they called bread and what you call bread are 2 completely different things. One was survival food perfected over thousands of years. The other is a corporate product engineered for profit margins and shelf life. Hit subscribe right now, because what I'm about to expose, the timeline, the deliberate choices, and the chemicals that turned America's most essential food into a metabolic poison, is something the food industry desperately needs you to never understand. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with the wheat itself, because this is where everything begins to unravel. The wheat varieties grown in Colonial and Pioneer America were called landrace wheats, strains adapted over centuries to specific climates and soils. Turkey red wheat, brought to Kansas by Mennonite immigrants from Russia in the 1870s. Red Fife, developed in Ontario and spread across the northern plains. These heritage varieties had genetic diversity. In a field of Turkey red, you'd see variation. Some stalks taller, some shorter. If disease struck, some plants survived. If drought came, some adapted. It was resilient. And critically, it was digestible. Turkey red had 28 chromosomes. The gluten proteins were easier to break down during fermentation, easier for human digestion to process. Studies on heritage wheat show they produce significantly lower inflammatory responses than modern varieties. A pioneer eating Turkey red wheat thrived because his body recognized it as food. The gluten broke down during fermentation. The nutrients were bioavailable. The fiber kept blood sugar stable. Now compare that to modern wheat. After World War II, plant breeders developed high-yield varieties designed for one thing: maximum production per acre. They crossed and recrossed wheat strains, introducing genetic changes that fundamentally altered the plant. Modern bred wheat has 42 chromosomes, but the genetic makeup is radically different from heritage varieties. The breeding introduced new gluten proteins that previous human generations never encountered. The gliadin fraction became more complex, more resistant to digestive enzymes. Research from the University of Kansas found that modern wheat varieties trigger significantly higher immune responses than heritage wheats. Your body sees these proteins as foreign invaders and responds with inflammation, not because you're defective, but because the wheat has been engineered into something your gut doesn't recognize. Pioneer wheat was bred for survival and digestibility. Modern wheat was bred for industrial baking properties and profit. That's the difference between food and a commercial product. Even if modern wheat were identical to heritage varieties, which it's not, what happens after harvest would still destroy it. Pioneer era, grist mills ground grain slowly between massive stones. This generated very little heat, preserving the delicate oils in the wheat germ. Those oils contain vitamin E, omega-3 fatty acids, and compounds that support heart and brain health. The millstones ground the entire kernel together: bran, germ, endosperm. You got everything nature put in that grain. In the 1870s, roller milling was introduced. Steel rollers spinning at high speed, crushing grain thousands of pounds per hour. But there was a problem. The bran and germ contain oils that go rancid within weeks. Rancid flour doesn't sell. The solution? Strip away the bran and germ entirely. Reduce the wheat kernel to pure white endosperm, basically pure starch. Then bleach it with chlorine gas or benzoyl peroxide. What's left is nutritionally dead. About 80% of the wheat's vitamins, minerals and fibre are gone. So the industry adds synthetic vitamins back: thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, folic acid. They call it enriched flour. It's like clear-cutting a forest, planting 4 saplings, and calling it reforestation. Modern roller milling also creates flour so fine it's almost powder. Your body digests this ultra-fine flour extremely quickly. The starches break into glucose within minutes. Pioneer stone ground flour was coarser. It took longer to digest. It released energy slowly, keeping blood sugar stable for hours. Modern flour hits your bloodstream like a sugar bomb, spiking glucose and insulin, then crashing you an hour later. That's why a pioneer could eat bread at dawn and work until noon without hunger, and why you eat toast at breakfast and you're starving by 10 a.m. Here's where the betrayal becomes personal. For thousands of years, bread making was slow. Pioneer women maintained sourdough, starters, living cultures of wild yeast and bacteria passed from mother to daughter, sometimes kept alive for generations. When it was time to bake, they mixed the starter with flour, water, and salt. Then they waited. For 12 to 18 hours, that dough sat fermenting. During that time, wild bacteria went to work. They broke down complex carbohydrates. They pre-digested gluten proteins. They neutralized phytic acid, the compound in grain that binds to minerals and blocks your body from absorbing them. They reduced lectins that irritate gut lining. Studies show 24-hour sourdough fermentation reduces phytic acid by up to 70%. That means a pioneer eating fermented whole grain bread absorbed far more minerals than you get from modern, enriched bread, even with synthetic vitamins added. By the time Colonial bread went into the oven, it was biochemically transformed into something your body could use efficiently and safely. A single thick slice could keep you full for 4 to 6 hours because your body could actually extract the nutrients. If you're getting angry right now, drop a comment. Do you crash after eating bread? How long before the bloating hits? Your body's been screaming that something's wrong. Now you're finding out why. Modern bread production. In the early 1900s, commercial bakers discovered isolated yeast strains could make dough rise in 1 to 2 hours. With commercial yeast and added sugar, plus dough conditioners, you could go from flour to finished loaf in under 3 hours total. The industry called it progress. Efficiency. But here's what they didn't say. Fast rising dough doesn't ferment. There's no time for bacteria to break down phytic acid, no time to reduce lectins, no time to pre-digest gluten. What goes into the oven is raw, reactive flour with all its anti-nutrients intact. That's what hits your stomach. Unprocessed, inflammatory, and hard to digest. The result? Modern bread has a glycemic index of 75, higher than table sugar at 65. It spikes blood glucose faster than candy. Pioneer sourdough had dramatically lower glycemic impact. It released energy slowly. It kept insulin stable. It didn't create the hormonal disaster modern bread triggers every time you eat it. Now let's talk about what's actually in that grocery store loaf. Pick up commercial bread and check the label. Calcium propionate, a mold inhibitor keeping bread shelf stable for weeks. Mono and diglycerides, synthetic emulsifiers that may contain trans fats linked to heart disease. Azodicarbonamide, a dough conditioner also used in yoga mats and shoe soles, banned in Europe and Australia. In Singapore, using it gets you 15 years in prison. In America, it's in your sandwich. High fructose corn syrup, added to sweeten taste. Pioneer bread had no sweeteners. Soybean oil, cheap industrial oil, high in omega-6 fatty acids that promote inflammation. This isn't bread. It's an industrial product engineered for shelf life and profit. But there's something worse: glyphosate. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup. American wheat farmers spray it on fields right before harvest in a process called pre-harvest desiccation. It kills the plant and dries it faster, making harvest more uniform. The problem? Glyphosate residue ends up in the grain. Testing finds it in over 70% of non-organic wheat products. The World Health Organization classifies glyphosate as a probable human carcinogen. But it does something more insidious. It destroys your gut microbiome. Glyphosate functions as an antibiotic, killing beneficial bacteria that help digest food, regulate immunity, and protect against disease. Colonial wheat never saw chemicals. Grown in soil, enriched with manure and rotation. Harvested by hand, ground fresh, clean and safe. Your wheat is soaked in poison from seed to shelf. The westward expansion from 1780 to 1890 was one of the most brutal migrations in history. Families walked for months across mountains and plains. They faced starvation, disease, extreme weather, and constant labour. Their primary calories? Dense, whole grain, naturally fermented sourdough bread. Diaries from the Oregon Trail describe families baking every 2-3 days in Dutch ovens. They ate it with whatever they hunted, sometimes just bread and water for days. Life was hard, but the bread sustained them. They didn't develop the metabolic diseases ravaging society today. Compare that to modern America. Since 1960, right when industrial bread became standard, type 2 diabetes rates increased 700%. Obesity tripled. Celiac disease, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, and inflammatory gut disorders exploded. The timeline doesn't lie. These diseases began exponential rises precisely when we abandoned traditional grain cultivation, stone milling, and slow fermentation. Italian researchers took people with severe irritable bowel syndrome, people who couldn't eat modern bread without pain, and switched them to bread made from ancient grains using stone milling and 24-hour fermentation. Results? Over 80% reported significant improvement. Less pain, less bloating, better digestion. The wheat wasn't the problem. Industrial processing was. Your pioneer ancestors weren't healthier because they worked harder. They were healthier because their food was real. The shift happened after World War II. The goal was clear: feed a booming population cheaply and efficiently. High-yield, hybrid wheat replaced landrace wheats. Chemical fertilizers replaced manure. Pesticides eliminated manual labor. Roller mills processed grain faster. Commercial yeast replaced sourdough, cutting production time from 24 hours to 2. It worked. Bread became cheaper than ever in history, but the cost was hidden. The cost was your health. The food industry optimized bread for shelf life, not health. For profit margins, not nutrition. They removed everything valuable and replaced it with chemicals. And when people started getting sick, they blamed you. You're gluten intolerant. You're sensitive. You have a disorder. No, you're reacting normally to an abnormal product. They took food and turned it into a prescription for diabetes, then charged you $2.99 for the privilege. Here's what the food industry fears: you don't need them. Option 1. Find bakers using heritage grains and traditional methods. Look for stone ground, naturally fermented, or heritage varieties like Turkey Red or Red Fife. Farmers markets, artisan bakeries, online shops. Yes, it costs £8 and £12 instead of $2.99, but that cheap loaf is buying you inflammation and metabolic chaos. Real bread is health investment, not expense. Option 2. Bake your own sourdough with heritage flour. Maintain a starter, mix dough the night before, ferment 12-24 hours. Ordinary people did this for thousands of years. Learn the skill. The result is bread your body recognizes as food. Option 3. Reduce bread consumption, replace with properly prepared whole grains. Steel-cut oats, barley, buckwheat, quinoa, especially soaked or fermented, provide sustained energy without industrial bread's inflammatory load. If this video destroyed how you see bread, do 2 things. Smash that like button so this reaches everyone who needs it, and subscribe, because next week we're exposing what they did to your milk. And it's even worse. Colonial bread wasn't superior because pioneers had secret knowledge. It was superior because they had no choice. They used what worked. They grew diverse, resilient wheat, ground it fresh and whole, fermented it slowly with wild cultures, baked it with care, and it worked. It sustained families through one of history's hardest migrations. We traded that for convenience and corporate profit. We bred wheat that produces more but nourishes less. We destroyed it through milling. We rushed fermentation. We added chemicals. We stopped making bread. We started manufacturing a product that looks like bread but acts like poison. Pioneer bread was real, grown in healthy soil, milled with respect, fermented with patience. That's what the industry doesn't want you understanding. Because once you realize the problem isn't gluten, but industrial processing, you stop buying their products. You demand real food. You take control. The pioneers you pitied knew what you're discovering now. Real food doesn't need factories. It needs to be left alone.